Sup people, Multiplier here. What I thought I'd do today is basically some thoughts on songwriting, and I thought I'd kind of use this track that I started a few hours ago as an example. So I've got a few ideas going in it, and what I thought I'd do is show you what I got and then kind of show you how I'm looking at it and kind of why I plan on evolving it in the way that I do. That way you see some kind of like in practice examples of some of the ideas that I've been talking about quite vaguely in some other videos, stuff like arrangement and just making shit interesting, stuff like that. So yeah, track's called, or working title, 110 is still cool, right? And it's at 112, which is pretty jokes, I think. But yeah, I'll play the first minute and a half. No point in playing the rest of it just because it's basically sections copy and pasted for now. So yeah, let's do it. This is a song thing in progress. Oh, let's start again. So yeah, here it is. You might want to listen with headphones or something with a bit of bass as well. It's quite a bass kind of led track. So yeah, just thought it worth noting. But yeah, here it is. And that'll do. So yeah, pretty cool track, right? Yeah, that's kind of a minute and a half in. So if you see on this timeline, takes you up to about the 49th bar in or so. So yeah, general thoughts on the track. Well, I don't know if you remember my last video about making songs interesting. Yeah, basically the main kind of ideas in this track, like the main kind of points that make the track interesting, at least the way I look at it, is the kind of the bass sound. It's quite like a interesting bass sound with some cool sound design, and also the fact that in the kind of the main section it's kind of an unusual beat. It's kind of like an offbeat kind of thing. It's kind of on a weird division of the 32ths, so it's quite cool there. Different sort of vibe, slow tempo as well, so it's got kind of a cool vibe and ting to it. And yeah, the other main idea behind it is the cool vocal in it, which is basically a vocal I chopped up and processed. So they're the kind of the two main ideas in it. Because remember I always said, start with your ideas, make sure you have a cool idea that makes it interesting, and then build it up around that. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And in general, the way I've kind of been looking at kind of writing this track is to really focus on those two ideas. So I'm not going to chuck in any more kind of main lead sounds. I'm not going to have any more bass sounds really. It's going to really be focused on that bass sound, which changes pattern and stuff like that throughout the track, and that vocal, which kind of subtly changes as well. So it's really going to be down to kind of leaving the mix kind of enough space just to really emphasize those two elements, but then also throughout the track chucking in tons of kind of subtle kind of bits here and there that are kind of interesting in themselves, just to keep you interested throughout the track. because you got to keep the listener interested throughout the whole thing, and you don't just want to be kind of copy and pasting sections and not changing anything too much because it gets a bit boring. But at the same time, you need some running themes. You don't want to surprise them and change things up every 8 bars, so it's a completely new sound every time. As like the classic thing goes in music, the secret is incorporating enough of what people expect, but also enough of what they don't expect as well. And finding that balance is really the key to everything. Yeah, which is pretty cool. So yeah, first kind of thoughts on the kind of the track and the arrangement is I'm doing everything as you should do in blocks of 16, 8 and 32 bars. That's something that a lot of people send me tracks and they're not made, well, they're kind of made in the tracks. Yeah, they're kind of made in chunks of say 8 or 16, but then the things will drop late, like a bar late, or it won't be the right length. And fundamentally, if you're making dance music, shit has to be predictable, at least in terms of the timing. There's an infinite amount of places you can keep things interesting and be creatively kind of interesting, but stuff like having your sections arrive on time is something that you just don't want to be fucking with, really. Especially if you want people to DJ with it. It's all well and good you making a cool track that kind of doesn't obey this kind of rigid block of 16 structure. See how I've got kind of like a block of 16, don't want to play, like a block of 16, and then another block of 16, and then another block of 16, and so on. It's all well and good you not kind of obeying that structure, but then don't expect DJs to play with it unless it's an absolutely banging track, which, let's be honest, it's probably not. Because very, very, very few tracks in the world can get away with not obeying the structure. So really just forget about like trying to be creative with the kind of the block size and kind of when stuff arrives, and just do everything in those chunks. And then looking at the kind of the arrangement here, you see that everything is in chunks. So we have kind of like a 16 bar bit, which is like your intro bit, which is basically, it's that kind of cool kind of 16th roll in bass pattern, kind of with a filter sweep in, which is kind of a bit different. You don't normally see intros like that, which I thought would make a nice change, make it quite nice for DJs as well, to have kind of like a slightly easier to mix in thing. And you've got another 16 bars, which is kind of 8 bars, which is a continuation of the first kind of theme, the first kind of bass idea, except with the filter all the way out. And then the final 8 before the kind of the drop, quote unquote, is kind of a continuation of the theme again, except with like the drums gone, and the final 4 bars before the drop is a kind of the same bass sound, but with a different kind of, without that kind of 16th rolling thing going on. So it's all about kind of, as I said before, finding a balance of things people know, but also mixing things up. And that's exactly what we've got going on here. So we've got kind of that rolling theme, we've got the same bass sound throughout, but then we change things up. So we have, say, like a different kind of effect, what's the right word for it, probably like a reverb sweep type thing going on here and here. So they're the same, and then we've got a different one down here, so it's kind of subtly different. And then another example of the difference is we get rid of the subtle snares here as well, so they don't appear here. So stuff like that, you want to just like do stuff subtly, but change things up, but like have enough elements flow throughout the entire track so it doesn't seem jarring. And then even this final bass sound right before the drop is the same bass preset, just with some different settings. So it's kind of one stab almost, instead of some rolling 16th stabs, which are quite cool. And then also we've got to kind of tie that into the next section, which is that kind of offbeat bass pattern, which is different to the normal sort of patterns you hear in this kind of music. We've got this what's called bass 1, like HP for high pass. It's kind of like, it's the same bass pattern as we've got in the main drop, except it's high passed and it kind of sweeps in. So you can see if I open up the EQ8 and the frequency 1, you've got like an EQ sweep, and that's kind of like a tried and tested way of kind of creating the transitions from one section to another, is to kind of, especially if it's a bass sound, copy and paste that bass sound into a new track, high pass it, and then sweep that high pass coming in. And you don't have to make it very loud, you can make it quite subtle or just like medium sort of loudness. And it just kind of like, almost like introduces the idea, introduces a new pattern to the listener, so it's not too jarring on the drop. Because what I found is, if I didn't have this kind of 4-bar section here right before the drop, this kind of offbeat section feels a bit jarring, because you've got this kind of rolling 16th kind of standard sort of pattern in the intro, but this kind of slightly offbeat thing in the main drop. And I also did it this way around for a reason, because to make it easier for DJs really, because it's kind of offbeat thing I've got going on in the main drop is a slightly unusual sort of pattern, and if you're a DJ and you've got to try and mix that in over some normal sort of stuff, it'll be really difficult. So it's quite nice to have this kind of easier to mix, more standard kind of rolling 16ths style thing in the intro. That way the DJ can mix in the first 16, 25, 24 or 32 bars, and then it drops into this new vibe, because it's got a new kind of bounce and rhythm to it for the drop bit, which is quite cool. So yeah, after that, what I was basically planning on doing is having like a 32 bar section of kind of like the main dancey bit. Call it what you like. So got the intro, got the main dancey bit, and then what I'm going to do is have like a 16 bar section with a different kind of, it's going to be the same bass sound but a different pattern, maybe something like triplets, something like that, kind of a triplety feel. I haven't done that yet. I literally just copy and pasted this kind of bass 1 channel through, which is the main kind of offbeat bass. So I'm going to take that out and put something in like some sort of triplet line, or just something a bit different, maybe half time, who knows, we'll see what happens. Maybe tease it in with a high pass section right before it, just like we did for the intro. And that'll be kind of like a nice 16 bar break, bridge, call it what you like, before it drops into the same thing for the next 32 bar section as we had kind of initially for the first 32 bar section. Except I'm going to add some very subtle kind of changes to like the effects and the kind of percussive stuff around the side. It's definitely a case of, for the majority of dance music, you pretty much want the same drop in the second half, like the second drop. Sometimes you can change it up, but sometimes it's fine to leave it the same again, just providing you have some really subtle changes. Because it's nice to bring back the same theme, the same kind of idea you've already given them, which is quite cool. And then after that, it's going to be a case of breaking it down with like a, so yeah, I've got a 32 bar section. It's going to be like 16 bars. It's going to be it's going to be 24 bars. So it's going to be like an A section of 8 bar, a B section 8 bar, and then back to the A section 8 bar. So it's kind of like this 8 bar section is repeated again. Again, that's kind of standard dance music. It's standard music approach. It's a nice way to kind of keep things repetitive and consistent enough, because you want the listener to kind of remember what kind of, if you give something to someone and they've already kind of heard it before, that kind of makes them feel good. But at the same time, you don't just want the same thing repeating over and over again. So that kind of A section, B section, A section idea is like standard across dance music. Really analyze some tracks you like, and kind of look out for that structure. It's super common. And it works pretty well if you have like a 32 bar section to go like A for 8 bars, B for 8 bars, B being a variation on A again for 8 bars, and then either a C or something quite different, almost like a breakdown style thing, which is what I've gone for here, which will be that kind of really long one stab thing that I had going on for a shorter section right before the drop initially. Again, it's the same idea, just kind of slightly different, because it's all about when you're coming up with your arrangement, kind of copy and pasting sections, but then changing things up just a little, if that makes sense. Which is pretty cool. And then again, just like the intro, for the outro, to make things easy for DJs, is I'm going to have a similar section of this kind of 16th rolling bass pattern. I'm going to make it slightly different to the intro, so I'll probably have a change up the kind of the effects and the percussive stuff surrounding it for the outro than the intro. I might even add some vocally bits in, kind of almost like ad-lib style vocal things here and there, just to kind of keep it interesting. And that'll be kind of a nice way to finish off the track and give DJs a chance to mix out. And again, just like before, we're showing someone an idea that they've already heard. But it's slightly different. That's the kind of the crux of it all, which is pretty cool stuff. So you can see I got a fair few tracks going, not that many yet, only about 15. So we've got stuff like our kick, which in this case is an uninteresting, just really solid, well-made Vengeance kick got our bass stuff going on. It's not processed super heavily yet. Just for your reference, in case you're wondering how I made that bass sound, it's a massive preset, which is basically, yeah, standard sort of bass sound. I've got a LFO, almost like an envelope, but slash loop, slash performer, slash wet. Call it what you like. I've got some modulation going on with the cutoff of two different kind of filters, and then this kind of cool voicing set up here, which I kind of dialed in. But then on top of that, which makes it really interesting, is I've got a plugin called Isotope Trash, which is a really good kind of distortion, distortion plugin. It's got some amazing presets. So just like I do on a lot of my tracks, I kind of ran this cool sounding bass sound from Massive, but not kind of super amazing. Ran it through Isotope Trash, just went really quickly through all the presets, found something that got me inspired, and then just kind of tweaked it. So in this case, I took a preset, tweaked it, changed the convolve setting, which is the kind of the convolution reverb bit, which gives it, kind of puts the sound in a space, so it sounds a bit more real instead of just completely kind of one-dimensional and synthetic. Change the convolve reverb setting because it has some unbelievable reverbs in this plugin, and then that gives me my basic sort of sound. But then on top of that, I did something I don't normally do, which is run all my kick and bass into like a room reverb, kind of super wet. So you can see down here pretty much, because I've got two screens set up right now, my intro riff, which isn't really an intro riff anymore, section, which is my kicks and the bass and also the snares, are being sent completely to a reverb, which happens to be a wooden room. So really short decay time. And what I found is kind of cycling through all the different reverbs, I found that some of the reverbs were kind of cool but not that interesting, but there were two reverbs in particular that was something to do with the exact kind of length of the decay time. Just gave it almost like made the bass float a bit with this really weird bounce. It's really hard to describe. I can probably show it to you to give you an idea. So yeah, let's play this little section here. What I'll do is turn the reverb channel off and on. I wonder if I can show you. Yeah, I'll do it down here. So yeah, check out the mouse. First of all, I'll turn it off, and let's solo it. Oh, let's not solo it. I'll turn it off, play a bit, and then I'll turn it on, and then just kind of watch my mouse just to see when it's off and on, and you'll see it kind of having everything run that much into the reverb, really wet with its really weird decay time, just gives it a cool kind of sound design effect and kind of lifts the bass out of it and makes it interesting. Anyway, enough talking about it, let's actually demonstrate it. So it's turned off. Pretty rad, right? Obviously, you have to bear in mind whenever you turn it on, you're making the overall sound a bit louder. But even factoring that in, you'll see it's quite a cool effect I went for. Again, that's another one of the kind of interesting ideas that I think is a bit different and a bit cool. Because as I said in my How to Make Tracks Interesting video, the best way to make a track is come up with a cool idea and then build it around that. Don't just go, right, what does tracks normally have here? Oh, it has a whoosh sound. Let's have a whoosh sound. It's boring and it's stupid. Come up with something interesting. And yeah, what about these other sounds I've got going on? So I've got a snare from a sample pack. I've got some what I call rev reverbs, like reverse reverb tails. So if I kind of open these up for you, you can see you've got some reverse reverb tails. These also happen to be in the same key as the bass line, which is a bit of a coincidence. But it just happens to be because I was making a sound effects sample pack a few days ago, and I made about 40 odd reverse reverb tails as kind of effects that had all these cool sounds I hadn't used in tracks yet. So I thought I'd chuck them in these tracks. No one else has these effects yet, so it kind of stands out. It's a bit different. It's not just the same up sweeps and the same rises that everyone else uses, and it's in key as well, which is always good. So cool stuff. That's where those kind of reverb tails came from. Again, it's always good to, if possible, have something that you've made your own in there. If it's just all the same sounds as everyone else's and it's not that interesting in any way, what's the point in the track? But at the same time, it is fine to use samples for some of the stuff. Like these kicks I've got are all literally just the Vengeance electro bass drum kicks, which are just phenomenally made. Why fuck with them, eh? When they're perfect already, which is pretty cool. Then I got this thing I call Chernobyl, which looks like a sample, and it is, but it's a sample I made, so it's not. It's just this kind of almost like tape echo loop type thing. I made a few of these samples to basically replace white noise, but it's almost like white noise, but interesting. So it has the same effect as white noise. It fills in that upper frequency spectrum, but it's got a bit of tonality and a bit of interesting sort of vibe to it. So it's a sample I made, which is pretty cool. It's just a nice kind of thing to fill up a track and make it interesting. So I have some of these dotted throughout the track. Because at least the way that I tend to do stuff is I'm not too kind of rhythmic and percussive bass. I tend to just prefer to have cooler sounds, really. Saying that, I do have this kind of percussive type loop going on I grabbed from a sample pack. Just kind of mix things up. Not sure if that'll stay in the final track. It's just more symbolic right now as the fact I need something in that section of the song just to kind of mix things up, because we've got kind of like the same section and then the same section, very slightly different because it's got a different riser. So I wanted to have this next set of 8 bars a bit more different. Again, same thing as I've been saying throughout the video. It's all about kind of making the sections the same but different. That's the kind of the crux of it all. It's quite cool. And again, yeah, another like a chant type, subtle sample going on there. None of it really processed that much yet, but I really will mix this very, very well once I kind of have the song written. So I personally think it's better just to kind of write the song first and then mix it afterwards. Now, you need to be doing some mixing as you go in, especially stuff like getting the levels roughly sort of right. And if like your sound processing is integral to the sound and it's kind of part of the idea of the song in itself, if that makes sense, you kind of need to do that at the time. So stuff like having my bass sounds distorted already, having the bass sounds running to that reverb already is all part of the track. So that needs to be done now. We can always refine the EQ and compression and all that kind of shit later, which is all good. I haven't even mentioned the vocal yet, which is quite cool. Could have probably mentioned the vocal a bit earlier on. But yeah, it's basically, it's one of the other main elements of the track. It's the other interesting thing. People connect to humans, which is why it's always good to have a vocal in a track. People can connect with your track a lot more, which is an incredibly important point, which is a bit of a shame it's buried right at the end of the video. But it's the reason why pop songs are so kind of successful, and it's why pop songs have vocals in them fundamentally. People connect with people. People can connect with kind of synthesized sounds and synthesized melodies, but people connect even more with human stuff. It's like a biological thing. So even if the sound is kind of processed quite a lot and it's kind of been changed so it doesn't sound much like a human anymore, at least if it started off as a human, you're going to connect to it more. That's kind of the idea behind this vocal. So it's a human sound, but it's a bit more interesting. And what it is, it's a raster vocal, which I use in a load of my tracks. But at least in this one, it doesn't just sound so cliched, raster, ragga, styly. It's pitched down, well, not exactly pitched down, but it's stretched out, which kind of retains a lot of the quality of the sound and the tonality a bit better than if you just literally pitch it down. And then it's kind of chopped up into sections, and then some bits are reversed, which just gives it quite a cool kind of vibe. And it's kind of chopped up, so it's kind of rhythmic, but it's almost like a melody and a ting in itself, really. And then you'll notice, just like I said before, the ABA sections, we've got kind of like an A section, 8 bars, a B section for 8 bars, and back to the A section again. The same applies with the vocal. So this vocal is the same as this vocal, but this is a different vocal, but it's very, very similar. Just like I said before, it's about having it the same but different. I basically copy and pasted this kind of section into here, but just tweaked some of the sounds very slightly. So you notice, for example, the first hit, this hit here is different to this hit here. Stuff like that, just having it very slightly different, just keeps people interested, but also gives them something they know and something they like. That's kind of the essence of it all, which is pretty cool. And yeah, what I probably will do with this vocal is just like on my track called Nightmare, or The Nightmare maybe, something like that. I think it's called The Nightmare or Nightmares. I can't even remember the name of my own track that I made like not even that long ago. But yeah, I made this track called The Nightmare or Nightmares, something like that. The Nightmare. I don't even know. It has Nightmare in it. Where the kind of the crux of it all is this cool kick sound and a really cool process vocal. I really like the way I process those vocals, so I'm going to do a similar thing to these vocals. So you can see we got basic delay on there, but what I will do is probably chuck isotope trash on there, add some subtle distortion to it, or if not, I will use the exciter from isotope alloy. It's got some really nice presets for the exciter. I think the vintage preset for the exciter in alloy, or is it ozone? It might be an ozone or alloy. One of the two has an exciter in it. And they've got some really good presets, which just give it a bit of character, which is always good, without completely destroying the sound or being cliche in any way. And then I might run that. Or in fact, I think that is going through, yeah, pretty hot to the same reverb as the kick and the bass. So again, it's kind of interesting but familiar because it's the same room, which is quite cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it really. It's just some ideas about kind of my track. So far, it's about 2 to 3 hours in right now. That was completely from scratch before I even had an idea. I thought it'd be quite interesting to kind of take a track mid-progress and kind of talk you through kind of how I see it progressing, as well as some like songwriting and arranging ideas thrown into the mix as well. So it's always good stuff. Because I know I talk a lot about kind of general ideas in my videos, but a lot of the time it's quite hard to kind of relate them to anything. So it's hard to remember and it's hard to apply them in any way. So hopefully it's a bit more useful that I've shown it you on an actual track. Which is cool stuff. Yeah, that is the ting. Anything else about the track? No, I think it's pretty much it. Cool stuff. Yeah, been multiply. Been a slightly longer video than normal, about half an hour. But you know what? It's fine to put out a long video every now and then. Yeah, I'll have to watch it if you don't want. But yeah, it's cool stuff. Yeah, cool stuff. Call it a day. Banging. It's probably gonna finish this track, or at least make some more progress on it. Write that kind of bridge break section. I'll do that. Cool stuff. Enjoy. Have fun making shit.